bring the wrong way. Hello, welcome all. Before proceeding, I pay my respects to the Murrumbidgee people as the traditional and original custodians of the lands on which we meet, and I acknowledge the continuing connection of the Tasmanian Aboriginal people to the skies, land and waterways. I pay respect to elders past and present. Before we commence with tonight's council meeting, please let us all pause for a quiet moment of reflection and respect. Thank you, councillors. Please be seated. Well, good evening and welcome to the Clarence City Council meeting of Monday, the 30th of October 2023. This meeting is being broadcast live on YouTube, and what is said in this meeting is not protected by privilege, and there is a link to the agenda papers on Council's website. Item number 2, apologies. We have an apology from Councillor Mulder. Otherwise, everyone else is present. Item number 3, declaration of interest of councillors or close associate. Are there any declarations from councillors? There being none, thank you. We're now heading to our omnibus items. Item number 4.1, the confirmation of the minutes. That the minutes of the council meeting held on the 9th of October 2023 have been circulated. Are there any issues arising? There being none, we move now on to 4.2, Mayor's communication, and my diary entries from the 10th to the 30th of October have been circulated, as well as the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Alison Ritchie, Councillor Bree Hunter and Councillor Emma Goyne, who represented me at different events. I thank all 3 councillors for that assistance. Moving now on to 4.3, council workshops as listed in the agenda. 4.4, tabling of petitions. CEO, are there any petitions?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. 4.5, reports from outside bodies. Councillors, are there any other reports from council and special committees and other representative bodies? Councillor James.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to advise our colleagues that we have had our first meeting of Tracks and Trails Working Group. Councillor Goyne and myself, together with a couple of staff, met, and we have a program set out for the next couple of months. And if I can just briefly just outline those particular meetings. A further meeting of the Tracks and Trails Working Group Executive will be held on the 8th of November. Formal invitations and appointment to be sent by the 10th of November 2023, and the first official meeting of the Tracks and Trails Working Group with community members to be held at 4 p.m. on Tuesday the 5th of December. Once we have obviously had those meetings and obviously had the inductions in relation to those members that will be coming on the committee, we will then set out a program into 2024 in relation to that. I can say, and there was a question asked in relation to the representative from the dog group. We do have one. There has been a person appointed to that role, so we do have, I think, Councillor Walker, you raised that at one stage.
Did you have it at that time? Did you?
Through
We
the
did.
chair, please, Councillor James.
We were still actually looking at those persons who have shown interest in this. So, in brief, it's all systems go, and I know the Mayor had a comment to make in relation to when that was going to commence. So I'm sure now he is well advised, as well as my colleagues, that everything is underway and that we are moving ahead with one of the most, I believe, successful committees that this council has ever had, and will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor James. Good to see the wheels are moving. Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to table the minutes from the Borough Community Arts Centre meeting of the 11th of October and the minutes from the Cultural Creative Advisory Committee for the 11th of September. We also had a meeting of that committee today, joined by Councillor Chong and Councillor Warren, along with all our community representatives, except for one that was an apology.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Chong.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I table the Richmond Advisory Committee meetings for September.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Councillor Hunter.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to table the annual report from the Southern Tasmania Regional Waste Authority, of which I'm the proxy for Councillor Warren, who was unable to make the AGM. We also held a strategic planning workshop at the AGM, or following the AGM, which went very well, and they're hoping to have a final strategy produced early next year. I'd also like to table the minutes of the Sustainability Advisory Committee, which took place on October 9th, and that meeting went well. It's a fantastic group, and we're really excited to be moving forward to see what we can produce.
Wonderful. Thank you, Councillor Hunter. Colleagues, with your indulgence, I'll now take a step back and apologise to Councillor Walker for skipping over the Copping Refuse Disposal Site Joint Authority. Anything to report there, Councillor?
No apology required, which matches nothing to report.
Thank you. And Councillor Hunter, thank you. You've taken care of the Southern Tasmanian Regional Waste Authority report, and there's nothing to report on either Taswater or the Greater Hobart Committee, colleagues. So, moving now on to 4.6, the weekly briefing reports. The weekly briefing reports of the 9th, 16th and the 23rd of October have been circulated to councillors. Are there any matters arising? Councillor James.
Thank you. The 9th of October 2023, and I refer to the Pass Road upgrade and consultation. In the actual letter that's been sent, or two letters that have been sent out to property owners on Pass Road, there is a reference to those 6 property owners whose properties will be subject to acquisition under the proposed upgrade and widening plan. I note, Mr Mayor, that there was a reference to the fact that on the 11th of October in relation to the same matter, and I quote, "The upgrade from Winterbourne Road to Connor Place will commence in 2024, subject to contractor availability, and will be followed by the upgrade from Glebe Hill Road to Winterbourne Road," unquote. My question is that a fait accompli? In other words, the way this reads is it's going to consultation, and consultation is basically what this organisation or place is all about. But by the reading and the wording in this, it just seems as though that the work will commence subject to the availability of a contractor. So my question is that sort of direct to the point, and we're not going to worry about consultation, and therefore I seek an answer.
The first thing I'll do is ensure that we're very clear about what we're quoting here. So I'll actually quote what's in the letter, because you didn't quote it correctly. What it says in the letter, Councillor James, is it is intended the upgrading work from Winterbourne Road to Connor Place commence in 2024, subject to contractor availability, with these works to be followed by the upgrading work from Glebe Hill Road to Winterbourne Road. So let's be very clear about what we're quoting in this place, please. CEO, do you wish to comment further?
Thank you. My response to the question would be that we need to look at this question in 2 parts. Council has been briefed and we've had numerous discussions about the need to upgrade Pass Road and the commitments made in terms of that upgrade. The consultation at this point in time is related to the road design and the potential to acquire some land. And subject to that consultation feedback, council will then work through, or council officers will then work through any issues plus the design, with the intention of bringing that to council for final approval and construction in 2024. So the 2 issues can coexist. It's not a fait accompli. It's part of a process in terms of refining the design and taking into account those considerations of those landowners.
Thank you, Mr Nelson. I need to correct the Mayor, because in the letter of the 11th of October, it says the upgrade, I quote, "The upgrade from Winterbourne Road to Connor Place will commence in 2024, subject to contractor availability, and will be followed by the upgrade from Glebe Hill Road to Winterbourne Road." Unquote. That's the letter of the 11th of October.
James, please take a seat. I'm looking at the same letter. Page 7. Of the weekly brief report of the 9th of October?
No, it's page 9, Mr Mayor, of the 11th of October. There's a couple
Oh,
of
my apologies.
Yes, indeed, and I quoted exactly from...
Councillor James, please accept my apologies. It would be helpful if you reference page numbers, particularly when there's sort of corresponds very similar. I do get that here. Will commence, and that's to the owner. So my apologies. Please accept those. Do you have any other matters, Councillor James, you'd like to raise?
Yes, I do, thank you.
All right, you had the floor. You had the floor, Councillor James.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The 16th of October, the Clarence Aquatic Centre closure for maintenance in January 2024. I note in that on page 2 that there is quite a deal of work that needs to be undertaken, and JMG have been available. It says, while the pool is empty, investigations on pipework located within the slab will also be undertaken. The combination of the inspections and testing will provide council staff on an accurate assessment onto which to develop an asset management plan for the ongoing and future use of the facility. So my question is that it has been flagged by the YMCA that there needs to be extensive repairs to the pool, the main pool, the 50-metre pool. And my question is what is the sort of life of that pool? And also I understand that the dome may need to be replaced in the foreseeable future.
Thank you, Councillor James. Mr Graham, you're in a position, please.
Through Mr Mayor, council officers have identified some rust marks in the pool. We are investigating that to understand the cause of it and whether any repairs are actually required. Repairs may not be required. We don't have any current information on the life cycle of the dome, but we are intending to come to council in the next year or two with a budget submission to understand the full life cycle of the pool, so we can investigate that and the council can be involved in the future ongoing decisions of the pool.
Thank you, Mr Graham. Councillor James, are there any other colleagues wishing to discuss anything with you? All right, there being none. I know we're at the end of omnibus items, moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Kennedy. Thank you. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. We now move on to item number 5, which is public question time, and we have 2 questions from Mr Bradley Walker as listed in the agenda. So, CEO, over to you, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr Graham has answers prepared to both questions. I'm wondering, Mr Graham, whether it might be more convenient for you to read the question and the answer for each.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Appreciate the handball. In May 2018, reading from Mr Walker's question, I first contacted council in regard to the developer's condition to fence public open space lot 105 of SD 2003/69. In early 2020, the developer fenced a small section of this lot which suited their agenda, but a large section of fence has yet to be built, and although last bringing this to council's attention in February 2023, I have not been informed to what progress council is at with enforcing this condition onto the developer. Could I please get an update? The answer is, it is believed the question relates to lot 101 off Rayleigh Court, Howrah, as lot 105 is privately owned. This land has been subject to a number of subdivisions, planning approvals and completed planning permits. Council officers are investigating council's records in relation to the fencing, and following this we will correspond with Mr Walker and include an answer in the agenda of the next council meeting. The second question. At council meeting on the 7th of August 2023, I asked about a section of walking track with SD 2011/30 that council is progressing in partnership with the developer to construct at a better standard than required. The developer has yet to construct any of the required 1 kilometre plus new tracks required by the conditions of this permit. Could an update of when these tracks might be constructed and what part, if any, the council will have in their construction? The answer is council is continuing to liaise with the developer for the track from Fairlie Terrace to the nearby reserve. The developer will provide contribution as part of the planning permit for a Class 5 standard track. Council has approved additional funds to have the track built to a Class 3 standard. Council officers are working on the design and will seek quotes from external specialist contractors to construct the track. It's anticipated the track will be constructed in the first half of next year.
Thank you, Mr Graham. Moving now on to item 5.4, questions without notice. Are there any questions from the gallery this evening? We now move on to item 6, which is deputations by members of the public. Members of the public making a deputation are reminded that they are limited to 3 minutes, and a timer will sound at the end of that time, and I will, as is practice, strictly enforce that. I understand that there are 2 deputations this evening. CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. Our first deputation tonight is from Ms Cathy Chong in relation to the planning application for 1 La Perouse Street.
And Ms Chong, just your address, please, would be helpful for the record. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kathy. I'm the owner of the property at Unit 3, 186 Cambridge Road, Warring. I'm here to express my concerns and objections to the proposal of PDP Plan PMTD 2023-037448, a 2-story housing development planned for construction at 1 La Perouse Street in Warring, which is directly in front of my house. I am deeply concerned about the significant and negative impacts this project will have on my house. I want to highlight the critical issue of blocked sunlight. According to provision 8.4.2 P3, the seating and the scale of a dwelling must not overshadow private open space or cause a reduction in sunlight to habitable rooms on an adjoining property. I think everyone got a shadow diagram of my unit. As you can see in the picture, the proposed 2-story house would cast shadow over my backyard starting at 11 a.m. in the winter, and by 12 p.m., nearly half of my backyard is shadowed. By 1 p.m., it starts casting shadows into my living room. I only have 1 window facing the northwest direction through which sunlight can enter the living room. The proposed house will block sunlight to my backyard and living room, especially when sunlight in winter is already limited. In addition, the proposed dwelling also overshadowing one of the units in 3 Edgeworth Street. I've also added the diagram in the picture. As you can see, the proposed dwelling casts shadows of more than 50% on the private open area of the Unit 6 from 9 o'clock to 2 o'clock. The situation will be even more detrimental. This not only affecting my property, but also have a significant impact on neighboring units, reducing their access to sunlight during crucial hours of the day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms Chong. Thank you, CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. Our second deputation tonight is from Mr Frank Law in respect to the same development.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Frank. I'm the resident of the property at Unit 3186 Cambridge Road, Warring. I'm also here to express my concern and objection to the proposal at 1 La Perouse Street in Warring. The proposed dwelling not only create overshadowing, but also visual impact to us. Provision 8.4.2 P3 also stated that the seating and scale of the dwelling must not cause visual impact by the appearance, scale, bulk, or proportion of the dwelling when viewed from the adjoining property. However, the planned 2-story house would completely obstruct the view from my living room and balcony, transforming the wild and green view to a wall and windows view. I respectfully request that you explore the possibility to amending the plan to consist of a single level house. The adjustment would minimize the negative impacts on my home and ensure that our neighborhood's quality of life is preserved. I understand the need for growth and development, but it should not come to the expense of the well-being and privacy of existing house owners. I sincerely hope you will make a decision that respects our rights. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Mr. Law. Thank you. That brings us to the end of item number 6. We now move into item number 7, our Planning Authority matters. So I advise Council that we now intend to act as a planning authority under the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act of 1993. The first item is 7.1, development application for 158 East Derwent Highway, Lindisfarne car park upgrade. Is there a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Walker. Is there a seconder? Councillor Kennedy, thank you. Councillor Walker, thank you.
Yes, ever so briefly. One reads the report. There's some extensive detail, and if you wanted to set up a pub today with a car park of that gradient or any other business facility of the existing gradient, it just really wouldn't happen. What's going to occur there is a marked improvement, and the chances of your car getting doored by the car above you because of gravity will somewhat decrease. So I think it's a rational and reasonable improvement, and I seek council support.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Kennedy. Thank you. Are there any other colleagues wishing to make a contribution on this matter? There being none, there's no need for a right of reply, so I'll put the motion. That is the recommendation. All those in favour? So carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving now on to item 7.2, which is the development application for 9 Bastic Street, Rosny, 2 multiple dwellings, 1 new and 1 existing. Call for a mover, please. Thank you, Councillor Hume. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Hume.
Recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Any other colleagues wish to make a contribution? I'll put them up. Councillor James.
Yes, thank you. I just refer council to page 45, and I quote, "The reduction in sunlight is to the private open space of 11 Bastic Street is not unreasonable because the shadow diagrams provided that show the existing development at 9 does not overshadow. Whereas at number 11, it appears that the loss of private open space of 11, which is to the south of the proposed development." My question through you to the planner, and that is it, could she confirm that there has been sufficient what we call it, sunlight to the property on the proposed development that is not unreasonable in the circumstances?
Thank you, Councillor James. Ms Olsen.
Through you, Mayor, the property has been assessed as far as the sunshine to the private open space, and it has shown to comply with the requirements.
Thank you, Ms Olsen. Councillor James, do you wish to say anything more? All right, thank you. Any other colleagues wishing to make a contribution? There being none, Councillor Hume, would you like a right of reply?
Thank you, Mayor. One of the things that I think we need to understand about the planning scheme and can be a lot of frustration, cause a lot of frustration for lay people trying to read it and understand it, is the scheme doesn't stand alone. It is given further definition by interpretations and decisions made by the Planning Commission, and this is what the staff follow in this case when it comes to unreasonable overshadowing of private open space. In terms of those performance criteria, it's defined as less than 50% overshadowed with 3 hours of solar access. That might not be what a reasonable person considers to be unreasonable, but having said that, that's how the Commission has chosen to interpret it, and we rely on those interpretations because we know that the Commission generally is going to follow the same practice as they have previously.
Thank you, Councillor Hume. Colleagues, I'll put the motion, which is a recommendation. All those in favour? And against? Thank you. So that's carried. Moving now on to agenda item 7.3, which is a development application for 1 Le Perouse Street, Warrane, multiple dwellings, 1 existing and 1 new. I'll call for a mover. Thank you, Councillor Hume. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Bit of a theme going on here. Councillor Hume.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I very much sympathise with the representatives we've heard from today, Mr Woe and Ms Chong. And I can understand, you know, the frustration that people have when, you know, they object to a development and talk about the issues that impact them. Unfortunately, what we need to do when we sit as a planning authority is apply the provisions of the planning scheme. And from my reading of the report, it seems that many of the concerns that are raised are in areas where the performance criteria don't actually come into play because the development complies with the relevant acceptable solutions. So it is compliant with the planning scheme. In fact, this is only a discretionary development because of one clause where the performance criteria are brought into consideration, and that is in relation to whether the development has, you know, by itself has sufficient private open space. And had that acceptable solution been met, then the representatives wouldn't have even known about the development until the trucks and the bulldozers started coming in. So, you know, I understand this is frustrating for people who are impacted by developments, but in this case, it does comply with the planning scheme.
Thank you, Councillor Hume. Councillor Kennedy.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Any other colleagues wishing to? Thank you, Councillor Walker.
Look, I think I'm probably largely paraphrasing or echoing many of the points made by Councillor Hume, and we sit and act and vote as a planning authority with the planning scheme that is before us at the period in time. And I think if you look at the proximity to the rear fence, the height, the scale, the bulk, you probably don't have to go back that far, probably to my old friend the 2007 Clarence planning scheme to know this just wouldn't have been something that would be put through. But it is, and the aspects of views of sunlight are not taken into the weight and consideration that they were in previous times. It's not a fob-off, it's the scheme that we're before us. And I guess one of the disappointing things is with that is that the actual proposal is a really good quality dwelling. It is going to be a nice residence, but again, the fact that it's able to be situated as it is has an impact that is unfortunate. So I do thank the representatives for their presentations tonight, and again for the detailed email that Cathy sent through late last week. But as we sit here as a planning authority, there aren't really grounds to do much other than support it the way that it is.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Hunter.
I'd like to thank my colleagues who have spoke before me and succinctly explained why we can't do much about this proposal. I'd just like to say to everyone out there, I think most of us around the table have issues with the current planning scheme. The difficulty is the public aren't aware of the planning scheme and the constraints it has in its new rendition. So I encourage anyone out there who has trouble with it or issues with it to raise their concerns with the state government, because more needs to be done to lobby them if it's not working for people.
Thank you, Councillor Hunter. Councillor Jones, thank you.
Thank you. I was interested to listen to the representatives in relation to this, and they did refer to the planning scheme, to 8.4.3 P1, and they mention P1, which means they have done some homework on this and gone through. Not only have they used the acceptable solutions as their guide, as part of the process, but also at the same time they have referred to 8.4.3P2. Now, there are a number of representatives in this particular case. There have been 5, 2 of whom have spoken in this place and outlined their concerns in relation to this. So, again, we are not necessarily tied to making a decision in the affirmative in relation, or the officer's recommendation, but we can put forward an alternative. And I suppose someone, or one of our members in this place, will come forward and say, well, Councillor James, you didn't put up an alternative, and therefore what can we debate? But the simple fact of the matter is, on page 73, it's quite clear, and it refers to 8.4.3A2, and that is what a couple of the representatives tonight clearly stated their concerns about the impact it's going to have on their dwelling. And in the general residential zone, it says, and I quote, while the total area of private open space for each dwelling exceeds the minimum of 24 square metres, the dimensions of the private open space for Unit 2 is inconsistent with requirements of the acceptable solutions, because it provides an area with a minimum dimension of 3.5 metre square instead of the 4 metre square. And it was referred to by one of the previous speakers that the development does not apply because of the acceptable solutions. That's not true. What we do is we use the acceptable solutions as part of the planning scheme, and then if there is some discretion, and there is always a discretion to be able to have a proposal and debate the issue. And 8.4.3P2 is, in fact, has been identified and has been a deviation, in my opinion, from the acceptable solution, and hasn't been addressed as part of the performance criteria. I think it's a shame that when we talk about the planning scheme, we think it's locked in, well, basically locked in steel, or some sort of term in there where we can't deviate from it. At a previous council meeting, we put up a refusal when there were 5 or 6 representatives in relation to the bulk, the size, the scale and so on of it. And that was approved by in this place. And also, too, that was debated on the very acceptable solutions that have been put forward tonight, and what have been most eloquently put by the 2 representatives, because they are concerned about their lifestyle, how this will impact a 2-storey dwelling on their property. I will not be supporting the officer's recommendation, because I believe that not only have the representatives put forward a very, very cognizant view on how it's going to impact upon their dwelling, but also the fact of the matter is that there is wriggle room within the 8.4.3P2, and it has been addressed by the performance criteria, and that is not inconsistent with the private open space that they should be entitled to enjoy as part of the adjoining properties.
Thank you, Councillor James. Any other colleagues wishing to make a contribution? Councillor Hume, I'd reply, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm really not clear on what it is that Councillor James is arguing as the inconsistency with 8.4.3 P2, the performance criteria there. You know, when we talk about discretionary development, I think this is an unfortunate term that's used in our planning system, because what we refer to as discretionary makes it sound like council can make whatever determination it likes on whatever reasoning it likes. A discretionary development is one that has had at least 2 representations, you know, according to the rules that we apply, and is, you know, can be considered by council within the 42 days, and doesn't comply with one of the acceptable solutions, so the performance criteria have to be taken into account. But we still need to apply the planning scheme, and that includes the performance criteria. The performance criteria are part of that use standard. So it behoves anyone who is going to make an argument that that is against the officer's recommendation to A, put forward an alternate motion, and B, yes, I understand Councillor James predicted I would say that, and B, in that motion to explain why it is, the reasons behind, the officer's recommendation being incorrect. And that's because that's the reason that goes through the Planning Commission, for the Planning Commission to then, to TASCAP, for them to then, consider those arguments and make an assessment. And it's easy to, go against the officer's recommendation without that reasoning. Council could do that, but we would be absolutely caned in TASCAP, because we have to have those solid arguments. A discretion is not quite a discretion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hugh. I'll put the motion, and that is the recommendation. All those in favour? Those against? So carried. Thank you. Council now concludes its deliberations as a planning authority under the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act of 1993. I note that there's nothing under 8.1, 8.2, 8.3. There is under 8.4. Move on to 8.4.1, which is Australian Coastal Council's Association Committee of Management vacancy. As colleagues might be aware from past practice, there's no need for a mover and a seconder. Someone can self-nominate if they would like. Of course, we can always go to a ballot too if that is the will of this council. But I'll call for nominations for this vacancy. Councillor Warren.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Bree Hunter, please.
Thank you. Do you accept the nomination, Councillor Hunter?
I very much appreciate and accept the nomination. Thank you.
Are there any other nominations? Congratulations, Councillor Hunter. Right. Now we move on to item 9, motions on notice. And as this motion stands in my name, I'll now hand the chair over to the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I now call on item number 9.1, notice of motion, Mayor Bromley. And I take it you are moving that motion. I move the motion. A seconder, Councillor Goyne, thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Colleagues, if there's one lesson that we've learned in recent years...
On a point of order, Mr Mayor, it's been customary in the past that if the Mayor is moving a motion, they come out into the circle.
Yep.
And
Yeah, that's actually not required, Councillor James. So thank you. I'll do it from my seat. Thanks. I'll start again. If we can restart the clock, please. Colleagues, if there's one lesson that we've learned in recent years, it is the need to appropriately and professionally engage with our community and other key stakeholders so that we're in the best placed position to understand their views and to best represent their interests. In my view, best practice community consultation is the hallmark of every successful organisation, particularly government institutions. Examples in our recent past, the Kangaroo Bay and Rosley Hill Hotel developments, and in very recent times, the proposal to develop an AFL high-performance centre on the site of the former public Rosley Golf Course, are just some examples of lessons learned by this council of the need for best practice community consultation. As outlined in the explanatory notes, there was a partnership agreement regarding communications and consultation between the Tasmanian Government and councils that was entered into in 2003. This agreement provided a basis for communication and consultation between those two entities, the state government and the local government sector. Now, as we know, this agreement was discontinued following a Premier's local government council meeting a few years ago, and since that time, in my view, critical issues with the Tasmanian Government's approach to consultation with the local government sector have emerged. Colleagues, not to put too fine a point on it, in my view, the state government's approach to communication and consultation with Tasmanian councils does not reflect good practice. It varies from issue to issue and in several instances appears to treat councils with a level of disrespect. As we've seen with the establishment of the development assessment panels, and again more recently with the fire service levy legislation, councils are among the last to know about significant proposals or pieces of legislation which impact councils and our residents directly. I'm sure that all fair-minded individuals would agree that it is appropriate for the state government to appropriately and professionally consult with councils prior to proposing significant legislative change that will have massive financial impacts on Tasmanian households and businesses. In the fire services levy situation, councils were given less than 24 hours notice to attend a briefing on proposed legislation to increase the levy. In addition, at that time, only 5 weeks had been allocated for the entire consultation on this significant reform. And this is after the state government had revision of this legislation on its review agenda for several years. In my opinion, this is far from best practice and fails to treat the local government sector with the respect we deserve. Now, as colleagues know from my diary entry, I received a call from the responsible minister, the Honourable Felix Ellis MP, and I was pleased that following that professional, amicable and respectful conversation, the minister announced an extension to the consultation by a further 4 weeks, taking the consultation period through to the 1st of December. However, if we had agreed protocols in place, then all players would know the rules of engagement. Simply put, renegotiation of the partnership agreement between the state government and the Local Government Association of Tasmania will assist to re-establish a best practice framework between these two levels of government. Once agreed, it will provide all parties with certainty and ensure that regulatory changes can be developed in partnership, be well understood, consulted and feedback properly considered before those regulatory changes are submitted to Parliament for debate and vote. A new partnership agreement, along the lines just outlined, will re-establish confidence and trust with the regulatory development process. Colleagues, I commend the motion and seek your support.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Goring.
I seek colleagues' support tonight because, as already mentioned, we are elected to represent the interests of our community, and if we aren't properly consulted with any legislative changes, how are we supposed to do our job? And as Mayor Blomley said, it is important that we are treated with the respect of being able to consult and do our job, workshop, discuss like we did this evening, and make sure that we're making the best decisions in the interests of our community. So I seek your support.
Thank you, Councillor Goring. Are there any other contributions? Councillor Chong.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Over the course of my time on council, I've attended a number of Premier Local Government Council meetings, and they are, as the Mayor has mentioned in his motion, a great place sometimes for high-level discussions between the General Management Committee from the GAT and the Premier and several of his advisors and sometimes other ministers. But they are not regular meetings, and they are certainly not at the level of detail that we need information from the departments when potentially legislative changes are happening or circumstances have changed and we need an update on information. So I think it would be excellent to go back to a standard way of having communication between councils as a whole and the state government and all of the varied departments of state government, not just at the Premier level.
Thank you, Councillor Chong. Any further contributions from colleagues? Councillor Hugh.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to raise, in terms of consultation, the example of the Future of Local Government review, where we were facing, and I understand the prospect of forced amalgamations is now off the table, but at the time it was on the table, we were given ridiculously short timeframes to comment on an issue, and this was something that we found difficult grappling with as a council in developing an agreed response to this in such a short time frame to something that actually had the potential to have one of the greatest impacts on local government of any review for a number of generations, I'd say. So, yeah, a perfect example of where proper consultation with local government is really required.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further contributions? Councillor James.
Thank you. It's interesting that the Mayor mentioned about the consultation process, and in particular he raised this matter, or the matters, in relation to Rosny Hill and Kangaroo Bay. And all of those issues were consulted with the people extensively. And at the time, I don't believe that he actually supported the motion that came to council that that we shouldn't proceed with the hotel development and so on. And also with Kangaroo Bay at the time, he was in favour of the question of having the hotel developed on Kangaroo Bay and vigorously attended to that.
Can I just ask you to keep your
yes,
constrained to the motion?
But he
We're not reflecting on previous votes.
He did, but he mentioned Rosny Hill, he mentioned Kangaroo Bay.
And the consultation process, not the subsequent
And the consultation
votes.
process that really drove those questions of how council decided at that time, and it wasn't actually carried unanimously on those occasions. The other thing about it is that we've just been through the voice to Parliament, and this, by the very nature, is a voice to the government. And we know what the success pattern was in relation to those who voted no, and the Liberal government, federal government in particular, advocated the no vote, the no voice. And in this particular case, the motion that's before us is advocating a voice to the government. Now, surely, if we have any consideration to the way that the government is going and undertaking its consultation process, then it's to be congratulated. Because at the moment, Sue Smith has headed up this future review of local government and has done a magnificent job. And there have been granted extensions, not only from the councils that have been advocating those extensions, but from the people. So this particular motion really is to write to the Local Government Association, request that a motion be placed on the agenda for the next, seeking support from councils. So at this stage, we don't have the support from councils, and we do not know as to whether or not those councils are in agreement to reinvigorate the partnership agreement that used to be in place back in 2003. So it's all a very wishy-washy sort of approach to what we're looking at here. And also too, talking about the fire levy, and that was also mentioned in the Mayor's presentation, it's got nothing to do with this. How in the hell are we going to be able to, if this motion gets up, voice to government about the fire levy and how it's being imposed upon the farms and on the residentials and so on? How in the hell are they going to say, well, look, is that really what the councils want? Because we administer this, and we actually pass on the costs of this of the levy to the councils to collect on their behalf. That won't change. It won't change one iota. And I don't think that this motion really has any teeth. It's just a case of political grandstanding and the basis of trying to get one's name in the public paper and also be able to get some sort
Councillor
of
Jones?
reference to it.
Yeah.
I will not support this motion.
Thank you very much. Are there any other contributions from colleagues? Councillor Walker.
Look, I rise in a state of indecision. LGAT to me is basically the United Nations of local government with just better comb-overs. And quite frankly, I don't know that I consider it a highly effective lobbying machine when it often has to get down to the lowest common denominator material. Now, what I do back in is the intent of the motion. The intent of the motion is, better quality and a calibre of, if you like, dialogue of back and forward, of input being sought and received. That's absolutely right, and I congratulate the Mayor for, if you like, highlighting that intent. But I don't know that I can come at the strategy to deal with it. It just reads, I feel the way that it's written with points like, C, that in pursuit of a new partnership agreement, we establish a working group comprising of council representatives to develop key terms of a new partnership agreement. That just echoes of Sir Humphrey's past when I listen to it. And I don't know that it's going to achieve that intent. if I don't end up supporting it, and I think there's probably a slightly better than average chance that that's what might happen, and if I have, what's it going to be, 5 others with me, I would state to the Mayor that in that instance, your intent is spot on, but perhaps we can collaborate between the next meeting to see whether there's a better way of getting that end goal, because I think the end goal really matters, but I just don't know that this is the way that's going to get us there.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Acting Chair. Mayor, Chair. I just wanted to ask a question more than anything, I suppose. And yes, I definitely support the intent of the motion. So this motion is to be, we're requesting it be placed on the agenda for the next LGAT general meeting, correct? And then that will be debated and voted on. So in that case, I'm very happy to support the intent.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Any further contributions? Councillor Hunter.
Thank you. Happy to support this motion. I hear particularly what Councillor James and Councillor Kennedy are saying, where it might not have the result we're after and be that effective, but I definitely think it's worth giving it a shot, and it can be debated at LGAT. I'm not sure about some of the other things that were mentioned in debate this evening and whether they had relevance, but yes, I will be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Any further contributions from colleagues? If not, I might make a contribution myself from the chair. I'd like to take the opportunity to congratulate the Mayor on this motion. Actually, I think it's very timely. Having been involved with government when we did the Tasmania Together process, and then Premier Bacon loved signing partnership agreements with councils. They seem to have fallen to the wayside after many years, and I think raising this issue, not just about this one particular issue with the fire levy, but the broader issue of consultation and the way that has dropped off, and I think Councillor Hume referred to, you know, in generations, some very important things being discussed, and councils don't seem to be getting their rightful place at the table, and certainly not in a very timely manner on some very critical questions that are being put to us and therefore by extension to our communities. I think that this motion has a lot of merit, and in terms of the way that it progresses, others of us in this place, myself included, have referred motions to the Local Government Association. I've actually then attended those meetings to see them through and get them supported. And it does tend to be the habit of the Local Government Association when receiving motions from our council. And can I say, our council does bat above its weight. We appear to be very well represented at the local government meetings with motions. Actually, I'd say we're the most active council in my time going to those meetings, putting forward motions on the agenda. But they do seem to have a preference for setting up working groups. Which, you know, understanding how they work, it's important to do that. If you want to get the buy-in from all of the other councils around the state, particularly on issues that have these statewide implications, you need to go through the process. Now, ultimately, what can it hurt? I mean, if it doesn't have the massive desired effect that we'd like to see, there's, you know, nothing lost. I think that there's everything to be gained, and certainly sending the message, and all the better if fellow councils through the LGAT forum join in to come to a position that we can go back to government on. And I would love to see the revisiting of those partnership agreements, the reviving of those, because they were very successful and they came out of the Tasmania Together, and some of you who might remember that process from many years ago, the Tasmania Together process, which was all about inclusiveness and had all sorts of KPIs about how state government was going to engage with community and councils and all of the rest of that sort of stuff. So this actually does a lot more than just talk about the issue with the fire levy, and I congratulate the Mayor for being proactive on that issue, but also this broader issue as well. So I'm really pleased to support it. I think it's a great motion, and I hope that if it succeeds here tonight, that it will get the attention it deserves at the Local Government Association meeting. So I seek support from colleagues. There being no further contributions, I will call on the Mayor for his right of reply.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And colleagues, thank you all for your contributions this evening. And it does appear somewhat Sir Humphrey-esque. I take that point. It's about consulting on a consultation process, and sometimes the wheels don't move, as we all know, move as quickly as we'd like them to move. But from my perspective, this is about putting in place best practice to ensure that we as key stakeholders are fully engaged in the process from the get-go, so that there are no surprises. And we did reference the fire services levy. That's going to radically changed, where across the board we're going to see a 46% increase here in Clarence alone. So more than $3 million will be raised from this year to next year if the proposed legislation is accepted. We will see potentially increases of 300% for households, up to 800% for businesses, 1,000+%, more than tenfold for farmers. It's going to hit our residents hard. And when the Minister took the time to contact me on a Saturday afternoon, we discussed this in some detail. He then at least had the good grace to acknowledge that 5 weeks wasn't sufficient time for us to engage with our community and for us to engage effectively with state government on that one issue. So that's been extended, as I said, by another 4 weeks, which is fantastic. If there were agreed protocols in place, all players, as I said earlier, would understand what the rules of engagement are. It would be professional and it would be fit for purpose. So, colleagues, I think enough's been said on this. I thank you all for your feedback, and I commend the motion and seek your support.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. That being the end of the debate, I now put the motion 9.1. All those in favour? Against? Declare the motion carried, and will relinquish the chair back to the Mayor.
I'll take the chair back. Thank you very much. Moving now on to item 10, Councillors' question time. There are none on notice. The answers to questions without notice previous council meeting as listed in the agenda. Are there any questions from the floor? Starting this evening with Councillor Goyne, do you wish to go first? No? Right. Excellent. Councillor Kennedy.
Nothing from me, Mayor.
Excuse me. Councillor Chong.
No, thank you.
Councillor Warren.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question in relation to the fire levy. A statement was made in the media that this council had a position on the fire levy, which we don't because we haven't discussed it. So my question is, there is obviously some information available, and I would like to have a more granular analysis of that information, because the line that I'm hearing in the media is that the proposed scheme is fairer, and I want to know if it is significantly increased, who is bearing the burden of that? Is it the smaller, man in the street? Is it large companies that can afford it? So I'd like to be able to see that sort of level of detail, and I wonder if that can be made available to us and an opportunity to discuss that in a workshop so that I can be better informed and answer questions when people ask me, and so that we can have a council position, not just a mayor position on that particular topic.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. And this is something a number of colleagues have raised with me. I thank you for doing so this evening. I'll ask the CEO, please, to answer that specific question.
Thank you. Sorry. Absolutely, the intention is to hold a workshop. As you will be aware, just from a time and space point of view, we need to do that rather quickly. In the background, Ms Murrell has been, with her team in the finance area, has been working on the modelling. We've also need to review the legislation because there are other changes proposed in the legislation as well, so that work is underway. And we'll be bringing that to a workshop as soon as possible. If I might go one step further, we'll be doing the same with the proposed changes to planning legislation related to independent panels. So that will come to a workshop in the next few weeks as well.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Councillor Warren? No, thank you. Councillor Darko. Councillor Goyne. Councillor Walker.
Thank you, and I thank Alderman Councillor Hume's contribution in the previous debate to remind me about future of local government. My imperfect recollection is that it was around about October that there was going to be an update or a production. I'm wondering either yourself, Mayor, or the CEO is able to enlighten us any more on the next stage.
Yep, thank you, Councillor Walker. CEO, thank you.
Excellent question. The time schedule was to have, for the board to have the report to the Minister by the 31st of October, which is, of course, tomorrow. We anticipate that the Minister may take a period of time to review that report and then make it public. So at this point in time, without knowing any precise dates, we would expect something to be released during the course of November.
Councillor James.
Thank you. Two questions. Firstly, I've been advised that we're going to have a reduction in the number of workshops before Christmas. And if so, how are we going to be able to obviously communicate to the public where we're at with the Kangaroo Bay Hotel development, with the Rosny Hill Hotel, the Boulevard Apartments and the High Performance Centre? So I think some of these matters will have to be discussed at workshops. Will we be able to have have workshops to address any of these matters before Christmas so the public can be informed of progress in relation to them?
Thank you, Councillor James. That's CEO.
Thank you. Councillor James is referring to my advice regarding workshops and other arrangements over the Christmas New Year period. Excuse me. As we've done in previous years, we will suspend workshops from the last council meeting in December and resume at the end of January in order to give everyone a break. The caveat on that, which I think I mentioned in my email, was if something urgent comes up, we will contact councillors and provide information, advice and a workshop if required. I'm anticipating that the mediation with Shambroad is scheduled for November, so that will fit within the workshop period, and I'll be able to provide advice back to council and public comment if required during the course of November and early December. And in terms of the High Performance Centre, we are continuing to work through those issues, and if there is a need for a out-of-session workshop at short notice, then we will certainly arrange that. The other matters, I'm not expecting anything to occur between now and the end of January.
Second question is in relation to, is Council anticipating a new DA to be presented to Council before Christmas regarding the Boulevard development at Kangaroo Bay?
Thank you, Councillor James. CEO.
Thank you. In terms of anticipating a DA before Christmas, not that we're aware of. We are anticipating a DA at some stage, but that also needs to link to a discussion about whether Council is content to entertain that under the sale and development process that we have in place. So at this point in time, I have no timeframes.
Is there a a substantial commencement clause that should or may have to have occurred before a new DA is presented on the same subject matter?
So Councillor James, I will allow that supplementary question. CEO.
Thank you. I'll need to take that question on notice. I think the answer is no, but I'll need to check.
Yeah. Can I make a weekly briefing report?
Yeah.
With that? Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Hume.
Thank you, Mayor. Just seeking a couple of updates on some traffic matters. The first one is on the 29th of August, the South Arm Peninsula Residents Association wrote to all councillors asked with a request in relation to traffic arrangements for market days. I'm just wondering what the progress is of looking at that request.
Thank you. Mr Graham, are you in a position?
Sorry, I don't know about that item, so I'll have to take that one on notice.
Thank you. We'll come back by the weekly briefing report.
Yeah, and the second one is the Mornington Roundabout. Is there any progress on that?
I understand, and I'll throw to Mr Graham in a moment, but I understand there was some lively discussion in Canberra with Senate estimates last week regarding the Mornington Roundabout, and I had calls from both sides of the aisle, if you like. But Mr Graham, are you able to provide a more detailed answer, please?
No advice has come through to officers on the roundabout at the moment.
Thank you. I understand it is sitting with Department of State Growth and the Federal Infrastructure Minister's Infrastructure Department. But we'll look into that and come back to you because it is something that clearly everyone has an interest in having a solution sooner rather than later there. But thank you, Councillor Hume. Councillor Hunter.
I have one question. Thank you. It's in relation to access to water for the South Arm Peninsula. I know a number of residents are struggling to get water at the moment. There's quite a long wait to get the water trucks to deliver because there's a short supply. My question is around whether council has any responsibility to ensure residents south of Lauderdale have access to water, and if not council, does Taswater have any responsibility?
So you have one for you or one for Mr. Graham?
I think I can answer that reasonably well. In terms of council responsibility, the short answer is no, but historically we have looked at some extensions of the scheme. Essentially the water scheme ends at Lauderdale. We did look at some plans for extension down to South Arm Oval for reticulation of the oval, but that hasn't gone anywhere. But in terms of the entirety of the South Arm Peninsula, I'm pretty certain I can advise you that there are no plans to extend water all that way, and I'm not aware of any obligation on Taswater to extend their water districts into rural areas in those sort of circumstances.
Anything else, Councillor Hunter?
Thank you for that. Further to that, does council have any responsibility to ensure there's enough water carriers to meet the demand so that people who are on water tanks can get water?
Thank you. Not that I'm aware of, but I'll take that on notice just to confirm that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Along similar lines, Councillor Hunter, in relation to properties that are required by permit to maintain water tanks for firefighting purposes, does council keep a register of those properties, and would council consider, if we don't already, making those details available to the local firefighting services who may not know where to go to access those resources, those water resources, in the event of a fire in a regional area? Because at the moment they don't necessarily know where those properties are that are required to have a tank, a water tank, on their properties. And then there's another matter of making sure those tanks are actually full. But first things first, which is do we keep a register, and would we consider one if we don't? And I appreciate it might need to be looked at. Thank you.
CEO.
Yes, absolutely. I'll take that one on notice.
Can I just point out that on the 19th of October, a number of us were at the STAPRA AGM, South Arm Peninsula Residents Association AGM, and there was something there that the fire representative provided a brief overview of sort of inspections that they'd been doing in the area to ascertain exactly where they were located and to ensure also that they actually had some water in them as well, so they were fit for purpose. Second question, Deputy Mayor.
No, that's all. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
All right, thank you very much, colleagues. Well, I'll now call for a motion to move into closed meeting, please. Moved, Councillor Chong, seconded, Councillor Kennedy. Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you very much. So thank you to those members of the public who have joined us here this evening, and to those who also joined us via the live stream. We now say good night and look forward to seeing you again in 3 weeks' time, same place, same time. Thank you all very much. Please end the feed. And we're clear, James? Thank you.